Hey guys, it's been a little while since my last tier list, so I just wanted to check in on the state of the game for you guys. There's been some shifts in the metagame of guns, and I wanted to give you guys an update on how it's looking and how you can shift your gun preferences based on what's been now on the rise. Some key components to consider as part of this tier list will be that this is focused for a solo queue kind of environment and disregards the competitive scene. This is because the content I make is meant for essentially the everyday player. In more specific terms, I will rate all of the weapons in the game based on the gun's capability and strengths in situations where it shines, the gun's flexibility to be used in different situations, the amount of value the gun brings, and any potential alternatives or substitutions for the gun. I will also be rating the guns in the game anywhere from S, A, B, and C, just as a reference to frame all of the guns here. I, of course, will also have my own opinions on the state of the game, and more specifically what guns I think are the best, so you may or may not agree with all the choices that I've made here. If you have a gun that you think should be considered higher or lower on the tier list, feel free to make a comment down below. Alright, so first I'll provide a major overview of all the guns in the game, and then from there I'll be breaking down any notable guns in particular. Riot has not implemented too many changes to each of the guns, and since the meta hasn't been particularly affected by any game-breaking changes in agents, you might be familiar with some of these relative gun placements. The newest agent Skye will also be soon making an appearance in the game, but I find it rather unlikely that she'll be making any massive changes to the metagame. In the C tier, we find ourselves with the Classic and the Bucky. Moving up to B, we have the Ghost, Frenzy, Ares, Judge, and Bulldog. And A, we've got the Operator, Shorty, Stinger, Spectre, Marshall, and Odin. And in S, there's the Sheriff, Vandal, Phantom, and Guardian. Now, with some of these guns, you might have expected them to be in this position, but for others, you might think that it's surprising that this may be the case. I'll now cover some of the more interesting placements that you might have thoughts about to explain why I have put the guns here. Starting off with the Ghost, you may find it interesting to see it in the B tier. The reason for this is that I've always found the Ghost to be one of the most overrated guns in the game, honestly. It's still really solid if you like the way it shoots, but if you do, I would honestly just suggest you save the 500 credits and use the Classic instead. No lie, I believe that most of the reason people like the Ghost so much is the combination of the sound that it makes and the design of its barrel, which gives the impression that it's really accurate. If you're of this opinion, you're not actually wrong, as if you timed your shots, you will actually get pretty consistent with it, but so is the Classic, honestly. Yes, the price difference means that the Ghost has a slightly tighter spread, more shots, and more damage, but in a vacuum, they're very similar guns. In pistol rounds, going Classic plus armor versus having just a Ghost essentially provides the same amount of firepower, and outside of pistol, they're both going to be generally ineffective in most scenarios. Overall, even though the Ghost is fairly popular, it's actually quite hard to put it any higher than that. One other big change here is the addition of the Operator into the A tier. Before, I placed it super hard into the S tier because it was actually just a good disgusting gun overall. While I still think it's really nasty in the right hands, the nerfs that it's received last patch have actually made it a lot harder to consider. Compared to the last time I made a tier list, the Op is actually more expensive, shoots slower, requires you to be pretty still to shoot, and had its jump peeking capability nerfed. So that's basically a nerf in most ways imaginable for this gun, and you can bet that you can feel that in game. The gun is still, of course, a giga tilter for people that raw peek you from 50 meters away, but depending on how comfortable you are on the gun, this may or may not be worth it anymore. The last big thing to note in terms of changes is that I moved the Ares down to B tier. It's still a really solid gun and has great uses for mowing people down in early rounds, but I find that its clunky nature to make it have more of a niche use than its competitor being the Spectre. This is of course still up to personal preference and whatnot, but I think in solo queue, it's quite important to be able to be pretty flexible and consistent in most situations, and the Spectre will be a better choice to deliver on that sort of experience. Now moving on to one topic that I think should be covered in this tier list, being the Vandal versus Phantom discussion. Both guns still sit at the top of my personal tier list, but the Vandal has made some huge strides since last time, as both its fire rate and damage per shot have been buffed. The Phantom is still going to be better in super close range engagements, but the lack of damage fall off makes the Vandal better in medium to long range scenarios. Now that the Vandal has had its performance boosted in this regard, I think that both of the guns are now on equal footing, and the better gun for you is literally what you prefer. I personally enjoy the consistency of the Vandal and knowing that I'll be able to kill an enemy no matter what, but the Phantom's bigger mag, faster fire rate, smaller spray, and silence shot at long range just make it still a very strong contender. So that's my 1.10 patch weapon tier list so far. I really am enjoying the level of gun diversity that I've been seeing in my games, and I hope Riot continues to keep up the balance changes to make sure this is maintained. If you have any questions about the tier list, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you want to support the channel, hit me up with a like or sub, as that helps me provide more content like this to you guys. But overall, that's pretty much it though, so stay fresh brothers, and peace.